You went to school for 12, 16, maybe even 18 years. You learned algebra. You learned the capital of France. You learned what a mitochondrion does. But somehow, after all those years sitting in classrooms, nobody ever pulled you aside and said, "Hey, here is how money actually works." And that is not an accident, because the way the rich handle their money is almost the exact opposite of what most of us were taught at home, in school, and even by well-meaning adults who were just as broke as we are. My name is Jesse, and I have spent way too much time studying the financial habits of wealthy people. If you are someone who works hard, earns a decent income, but still feels like you are running in place financially, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps you out. Here is the thing. The rich are not necessarily smarter than you. They are not necessarily working harder than you. A janitor in Vermont named Ronald Reed died in 2014 and left behind $8 million. $8 million. He never made more than minimum wage for most of his life. So what did he know that the average person earning six figures does not? He understood a few simple rules. Rules that schools never teach. Rules that, once you understand them, completely change how you look at every dollar that flows in and out of your life. So let us get into it. 5 money rules the rich follow that schools never teach you. Rule number 1. The rich pay themselves first. Everyone else pays themselves last. Look, here is how most people handle a paycheck. The money comes in, they pay rent, they pay the car note, they pay the credit card minimum, they buy groceries, they handle the kids' school stuff, they grab dinner out a couple of times, and then, if there is anything left at the end of the month, they think about saving. Spoiler alert, there is never anything left. The rich flip this completely upside down. The moment money hits their account, the first thing that happens is a transfer to savings or investments. Before bills, before rent, before anything. The financial author George Clason called this the very first rule in his classic book, The Richest Man in Babylon, and the principle is simple. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. Here is what most people do not realize. If you make $4,000 a month and you commit to paying yourself 15% first, that is $600 a month, going straight into investments before you even see it. Over 30 years, invested in a basic index fund, averaging 8%, that becomes around $890,000. Nearly $1 million from a habit you do not even feel because the money never sits in your checking account long enough to tempt you. Now, you might be thinking, Jesse, I cannot afford to save 15%. I am barely making it. And I hear you. Start with 1%, just 1. Then bump it up every time you get a raise. The point is not the number. The point is the order. Pay yourself first. Rule number 2. The rich buy assets. Everyone else buys liabilities and calls them assets. This is where it gets really interesting. Ask the average person what their biggest asset is, and they will say their house, or their car, or their college degree. The rich look at those same things and see something completely different. Robert Kiyosaki put it simply. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out. Your car. It costs you insurance, gas, maintenance, and depreciation every single month. That is a liability. Your house, if you live in it, costs you a mortgage, taxes, repairs, and utilities. That is a liability too, even though the bank and your parents told you it was an investment. Real assets look different. A rental property that brings in monthly cash flow. A dividend-paying stock portfolio. An index fund that pays out distributions. A small business that runs without you being there every hour. A digital product that sells while you sleep. Here is the math that nobody teaches you in school. The average American spends about $12,000 a year on their car. $12,000. If instead you drove a reliable used car costing you $4,000 a year all in, and you took that $8,000 difference and invested it every year for 30 years at 8%, you would end up with just under $1 million from one decision. 1. The rich do not avoid nice things forever. They just buy assets first and let those assets pay for the nice things later. Rule number 3. The rich use debt as a tool. Everyone else lets debt use them. School taught you that debt is bad, period, end of story. And for consumer debt, that is mostly true. Credit card debt at 24% interest is financial poison. Buying a depreciating car on a 7-year loan is a slow leak in your wallet. That kind of debt makes the bank rich and keeps you poor. But here is what most people do not realize. The wealthy do not avoid debt. They use a very specific kind of debt to multiply their money. It is called leverage. When a real estate investor buys a rental property with a 20% down payment, they are using the bank's money to control an asset 5 times larger than their cash investment. If that property appreciates 5% in a year, they did not earn 5%. They earned 25% on their actual money, because the appreciation happened on the full property value, not just their down payment. The rule is simple. If debt buys you an asset that produces income greater than the interest you are paying, that debt is making you richer. If debt buys you something that loses value or just sits there costing you money, that debt is making you poorer. Schools lump it all together and tell you to avoid debt. The rich learned the difference and built empires on it. Rule number 4. The rich understand that taxes are their biggest expense and plan accordingly. Let me ask you something. What do you think is the single biggest expense in the average person's life? Most people guess rent, or food, or their car. The actual answer, for most middle-class earners, is taxes. When you add federal, state, payroll, sales, and property taxes together, the average American pays somewhere between 30 and 40% of their income in taxes over their lifetime. But here is the part that will blow your mind. Warren Buffett famously said, he pays a lower tax rate than his secretary. How? Because the tax code is not written for employees. It is written for investors and business owners. Schools teach you to be a good employee. They do not teach you that the tax code has hundreds of pages of legal advantages built specifically for people who own businesses, own real estate, and invest in the markets. Look, the rich are not all using shady offshore schemes. Most of them are just using accounts and structures that are completely legal and available to you right now. A 401k, a Roth IRA, an HSA, a traditional IRA, a SEP IRA if you have any side income, real estate depreciation, long-term capital gains rates. These are not loopholes. These are doors. The rich walk through them. Most people do not even know they exist because nobody at school ever pointed them out. If you are not maxing out at least one tax-advantaged account, you are essentially handing the government extra money every single year that you could be keeping and growing for yourself. Rule number 5. The rich think in decades. Everyone else thinks in paydays. Here is what most people do not realize. The single biggest financial superpower in the world is not a high salary. It is not a hot stock pick. It is not crypto. It is time. Specifically, time combined with compounding. Here is the math. 2 people. Sarah starts investing $200 a month at age 22 and stops at 32. She invests for 10 years total, $24,000 in. Mark starts at 32 and invests $200 a month all the way to 65. He invests for 33 years, putting in $79,200 total. Both earn 8%. Who has more at 65? Sarah, by a lot. She ends up with around $430,000. Mark ends up with around $370,000. Sarah invested less than a third of what Mark did, but she beat him by $60,000 because she gave her money more time. That is the entire secret. The rich know this. They start early. They stay invested through every panic and every crash, and they let time do the heavy lifting. The average investor checks their portfolio 9 times a month. The wealthy check it maybe once a quarter. They are not glued to the stock ticker. They are not panic selling every time the news cycle gets ugly. They planted the tree. They are just waiting for it to grow. So let us bring it all together. Pay yourself first before you spend a dime on anything else. Buy assets that put money in your pocket, not liabilities that drain it. Use good debt as a tool to control more than your cash alone could. Treat taxes like the massive expense they actually are, and use every legal account available to you. And think in decades, not paydays. None of this was taught in school. None of it. And that is exactly why the people who figure it out tend to pull so far ahead so fast. You do not need a finance degree. You do not need a six-figure salary. You just need to start applying these rules, one at a time, starting with the very next paycheck that lands in your account. You will not want to miss our next video, where we break down exactly how to set up your first pay-yourself-first system in under 15 minutes. So hit that subscribe button, smash the like if this opened your eyes, and I will see you in the next one. New videos every Tuesday and Friday. Let us build that wealth together.